you've been calling it political cruelty. We talked in this campaign about how what is really unspeakable has been encouraged, even fired up by the argument that what's justifying this is righteousness, this distorted moral narrative, right? That there's a sort of God-given responsibility to do several of the things that you've been saying we've got to stop. So we've been talking about how we need to change the moral narrative in the country, and one of those is around this issue of work and opportunity that came up earlier, right? This notion that that God has blessed those who work and has given them wealth, and if you're poor, you're not blessed, right? So we have some friends here who are with the Fight for 15, and I want to invite them to come, particularly because the question that they've been raising in this country is really one that allows us to reorient that focus on, the people who are working the hardest in this country oftentimes are the people who are making the least in terms of, the remuneration for their work. So let me invite Fight for 15 to come and ask this last question. And then we want to give you a copy of the audit and the budget that you and your campaign can take with you.
And we'll meet right after with the media in the media room.
My name is Wanda Coker, and I have been working in fast food for 28 years. The Poor People's Campaign moral budget shows that a $15 federal minimum wage would raise pay for 49 million workers. In fact, it would raise up pay for workers by $328 billion per year altogether. And this number is so much more than the so-called tax cut bonuses that some employers gave workers in 2018. Those only total $7.1 billion. A $15 minimum wage would make a huge difference for working families like mine. If elected, what is your plan to guarantee living wages and strengthen union rights for all workers?
So Wanda, just so you know, I have been personally pushing for 15 bucks for years in California, and we actually have it.
Yes.
And I want to talk for 1 second about the minimum wage, and then I want to talk about unionism. Let me talk about the minimum wage for a second, which is this. The minimum wage in the country is $7.25. If you just inflation adjusted the minimum wage in 1980 when Ronald Reagan got elected, so it's not a raise, it's just the same amount of money in 2020 dollars, it would be $11. If you then included the working people's share of productivity gains, because we're much more productive now. Over the last 40 years, people have gotten a lot better at their jobs, they get more done. If working people got their share of the productivity gains over the last 40 years, the minimum wage would be 22 bucks. 3 times what it is now. So I was fighting for 15 bucks 5 to 7 years ago, online with fast food workers for McDonald's, as a matter of fact, in Oakland, California. Let me say one other thing. Every single fight I've ever had in politics, every campaign of which I've done tons, my first partner's been unions. My most steadfast partner has been unions. And as I like to say, my last partner will be unions. Because the organized labor movement doesn't just represent the members of their unions. They stand for working people all across the country, and they're sort of carrying the flag for everybody, including people who aren't members of unions. So what will I do? Look, there has been a 40-year war on working people's rights. And they've attacked unions specifically, but they've done everything they can. And we are going to have to push back on every single way. We're going to have a National Labor Relations Board with people in charge who think that they're in charge of helping workers get ahead. We've seen incredible wage disparity between the richest Americans and everybody else. And the example I will give you is 1980, the CEOs of the 50 big company made 35 times the average wage of the people in their company, 35 times. Today, it's somewhere between 350 and 400 times. That's what's happened. So we need to push. Look, Every state I've gone to, when we've been able to push governor and the two legislators, the first question I ask is, what are we doing first? Minimum wage or getting rid of right to work? Giving people a chance to organize and build unions. And the answer's got to be both. So I think it's got to start with appointments. We've got to push in every single case for those two things. A much higher minimum wage, which, by the way, actually makes the economy do better. That's right. Doesn't hurt. Everyone says it's always going to be the end of the world. It never is. It's actually better. We need to push minimum wage, but we really need to push the rights of working people. And I want to tell you a story, because when I say I see cruelty, the example I'd use for working people is I was with unionized nurses in Iowa that work in mental health facilities. They don't get overtime, time and a half, because they count them as teachers. Nurses are not teachers. Nurses are nurses. They got a raise, the state legislature took it away and built an airport. They get beat up at work. Now, these are not 100% women. They're probably, the people I was talking were probably 8 out of 10 of them were women. They got beat up at work, and then they got fired for not getting back to work fast enough because they were hurt. And there was a rule that if you talk about anything at work, outside work, you're fired for that. And my God, it sounds like the Soviet Union. And here's my answer. I pledge, I will push as hard, not just for minimum wage. I will push for the rights of working people and of unions. Because there has been a deliberate, successful 40-year campaign to pass dozens and dozens of laws to take away the rights of working people. And I want to tell you one last story, which, one of the companies that has really screwed up is Boeing. They had these planes that blew up and killed people. Actually, I think they couldn't land them. So they had to get rid of the president because basically he'd done an absolutely terrible job. He got a $60 million goodbye kiss. It's amazing.
For failure.
Wanda, every single
For failure.
I can do, absolute failure.
He
outright failure.
And got 60.
Yes. And my point is this. I keep saying, it's a fight. I'm a grassroots person. They have been killing us for 40 years. That's why I started a grassroots organization. That's why I fight corporations at the ballot box every chance I get. And I don't want to compromise, because what they've been doing is hurting people knowingly for money. That's honestly what's been going on with you for 28 years. And I promise you, there's no one silver bullet, but there is a silver attitude, which is we are going to fight back and win.
Brother Steyer, we want to thank you. I've got one other little piece for coming